So thank you for all joining our AGM this morning. My name is Julia Singleton-Tasker and I'm the Heart of England Community Rail Partnership Officer. To formally start our event, I'd like to pass you over to the Chair of the Heart of England Community Rail Partnership, Margaret Smith.
Hi, thank you, Julia. Good morning. I'm Margaret Smith. Sorry, there is an error on the slide there. So I'm actually from Warwickshire County Council, but this morning I'm pleased to be here in my role as Chair of the Heart of England Community Rail Partnership. 2020 marked our first full year as a partnership, and whilst the events of 2020 didn't provide the ideal backdrop, the commitment and enthusiasm that we've seen from Julia and the partners has meant that we've all had to embrace new ways of working to help deliver on our ambitions as a partnership. This morning is all about celebrating some of these achievements from the last year, but also we want to take the opportunity to look forward and see how we can all encourage people and support them back to rail in the safest way possible in 2021. I'm pleased this morning to be joined by a number of guest speakers and panellists who you will see on the screen at the moment, and they will lead us through the various sessions this morning. I just want to say thanks in advance to each of you for giving up your time this morning. I'd also like to take this opportunity to pay thanks to all the volunteers and the volunteer groups, many of whom are on the call today. Your hard work and dedication makes a real difference to our local stations and the communities they serve. A big thank you from the partnership for all that you continue to do, especially given these challenging times. And then a couple of points on housekeeping from me. So the session is being recorded. It will be available to view on the CRP website at a later date. We encourage you to get involved this morning by asking questions of the guests, speakers and panellists, and by putting forward your ideas. You can do this in a couple of ways. You should be able to see there's a question function on the control bar. Alternatively, so you can either post your question in there, or alternatively, you can use the raised hand function and you'll be invited to ask your question at the appropriate time. And just to confirm, there is a 10-minute break scheduled for midway through this morning. And then finally from me, we've had some really exciting news that came in quite late on Friday, just to say that we now have formal accreditation for the CRP. So that's come through from the Department for Transport. There'll be more information about that on the website soon. Okay, that's everything from me for now. I will pass back to Julia to take us into our first presentation. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Margaret. So, as many of you know, I started this role in January 2020. I'm not sure what I expected from the job exactly, but I definitely didn't foresee a global pandemic that's dramatically changed our industry and our lifestyles. So we've had to adapt along with the rest of the world to working in a community-focused role, but without physically being in the community. So the real backbone of the railways are the volunteers of the station adopter groups. And at the start of 2020, there were 14 stations adopted in the Heart of England area, and now there are 30 out of the 36 stations adopted. At this point, I must give a special mention to the Friends of the Shakespeare Line, who've been absolutely instrumental in the adoption of all the stations on the Shakespeare Line, and I know they've got great plans to really promote that line in the future. It was a monumental task, and they've created a real sense of community and cohesion across the whole line. So for the CRP, we had to work out how to keep our volunteers connected with the railways and each other. So as well as starting quarterly newsletters, which are downloadable from our website, we also organised informal stakeholder meetings using Zoom. Nothing can replace meeting in person, but thank goodness we have had video calling capacity at this time. So the first thing I'd just like to speak about very quickly is our annual report. There is a copy of our annual report that is downloadable from the website, and it just provides further details about the CRP and the work that we've done over the past year. It has information about our partners who have generously funded the CRP. It's also got ideas for projects that we'll be looking forward to in the future, and I will be talking more about our future plans towards the end of the session. One of our key projects for this year was our Coventry Acts of Kindness, and rather than me just talking at everybody for the whole time, I'd like to introduce you to Melanie Griffin, who's the Suicide Prevention Coordinator from the Kaleidoscope Plus group, who we partnered with to deliver this project. So I'll hand over to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Julia. So yeah, Julia's already introduced herself. I'm Melanie and I'm from Kaleidoscope Plus Group. We're a national wellbeing and mental health organisation. And we decided after a discussion that we wanted to do something across the railway stations across Coventry. And we decided to do Random Act of Kindness to coincide with World Suicide Prevention Day in September. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we go. So this was the idea behind it. So we decided that we were going to host 6 sessions across 3 stations over 4 days. And we wanted to make sure that we wanted to try and encourage people back onto the railway. And we were aware that people were a little bit anxious around travelling, joining back, going back to work. So we wanted to do something that was actually a random act of kindness. And it actually was a little bit harder than we thought, and we'll give you some feedback towards the end, but it was hosted through a number of different partners that you can see on the screen. And I'd like to thank Julia for obviously her part in arranging the day as well, along with the volunteers that we managed to get involved from Lions International Charity as well. And again, thank you to Avanti for the funding behind it. Next slide, please. So at the event, we put together some information, and we actually decided to hand out the random gifts of kindness. And these were cookies, flowers, postcards, cupcakes. And we decided to use local small organisations that had either been impacted from COVID or were sort of growing. So we used Wicked Cookies, who had been unable to work from Coventry's train station for the whole of the pandemic. So it was a good boost to their income and also promotion for them as well. An example of the cupcake that was handed out at the bottom as well, that was supported by a local business called Butter Cream Dreams as well. We tried to make sure that we had engagement from a number of different people. We also made sure that we engaged with school children that were coming through, because we were aware that people obviously under the age of 21 had no option but to go to school, and we could see that they were anxious about travelling as well. So we tried to make sure that we incorporated everybody when we were actually handing out the gifts as well. Next slide, please. So here's some examples, some pictures of the event. We actually got British Transport Police as well involved. They absolutely loved being involved in the event. It was people walking through the train station, giving out random gifts, also having a conversation with them, giving out literature, information on both organisations that were involved, and making sure that they were aware of signposting to further information and support organisations where needed. We decided to do morning peak time and evening peak time at the stations, and also Coventry Station on the Saturday as well. So it was Tile Hill, Canley and Coventry Station. We got some mascots involved, both from the Lions and also from Callie, from Kaleidoscope Plus Group as well. And that went down really well with absolutely everybody, really. Next slide, please. We also got quite a few hits on social media, and these were obviously promoted throughout both organisations, the tags that were involved in it. So it was a lot of recognition that was involved. As you can see, we also got a local MP that we actually didn't know was the MP at the time. We just handed a random gift out, and that did receive a really high number of social media hits as well on the for the event. So that was really good. Next slide, please. Whilst we were there, as I said, the idea wasn't just handing out the random gifts, it was actually to engage and talk to people. And whilst we were at a number of stations, we did actually have 3 people that did disclose that they were thinking of suicide. So train staff were obviously involved, and they did obviously take that person off and obviously have a conversation, and also given shout details, which is a 24/7 text service that is available to anybody. We have got posters if anybody would like to get in touch. My details on the bottom. We can get those posters arranged to be delivered to you for your workplaces. But it was a really good event. Families got involved. a lady came over to Julia, and they'd been on the previous day, and they said that they were going to go home and they're baking cakes and they were going to deliver them to family and friends. But it was also commuters that you could see were visibly anxious, and just having that person there to sort of just reconfirm to them that it's safe, it's welcoming, and obviously, you know, this is going to be the moving forward. I think it was really valuable for the event. Again, thank you to Avanti for funding the project. Wouldn't have been able to have done it without you. And again, thank you to Julia for getting me involved. Like I say, if anybody needs anything, then please do get in touch. My email is there on the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. It was a real pleasure to do that project with you, actually. And also it was great to be out in a train station, sort of engaging with people after so long of kind of spending in isolation. And I can't wait for this next year, because I think as restrictions ease, then there's only going to be more opportunities to go out and actually chat to the communities in the areas that we serve. We will take questions. If you've got any questions for Melanie, then please do put them in the chat function. And just before we come to the next part of the agenda, we will have a few minutes just to answer any questions that you may have had. So looking back over the last year from the CRP point of view, as I said, we only started sort of January 2020. And with the lockdown, a lot of the things that we would normally be planning to do, like, you know, planning events at trains and on stations, going out into the community, just not an option. So the Coventry Acts of Kindness was one of our key projects, but the first project that we did was actually for our volunteers. So a lot of our volunteers during that first period of lockdown were not able to go to the stations and continue the fantastic work that they do there. So as a bit of a thank you to them, and also to acknowledge that we really do appreciate everything that they do, as a steering group, we decided that we wanted to give them a welcome backpack for when they did return to the stations. I'm not sure if we can get my slide back on. If not, I will just keep talking. So the welcome backpacks, and I wanted to say thank you to Beth from Chiltern and Paul from the Community Rail Network, because they helped me to organise and put these packs together. The packs were part funded by the Community Rail Network as well, and they contained a mix of useful items such as face masks and hand sanitisers, things that I think we never would have thought would be essentials in everyday life. Thank you. And they also contained just some nice bits and pieces to say thank you to our volunteers. So we had some chocolate, we had a nice drink, and every station adoption group also got a garden centre voucher for a local garden centre. So at that time we had 15 adoption groups, and we had 131 volunteers, which meant that I had 131 bags in the back of my car, and I had the great pleasure to go around to all the different stations and meet up with just one person from each adoption group, obviously making sure we adhere to social distancing rules to pass these bags out. What I wanted to do as well, a big part of the Community Rail Partnership, is to make sure that we support the areas that we serve, and part of that is supporting the local businesses, the independent retailers. Melanie touched upon it in the Coventry Acts of Kindness. It was really important to us that we didn't just source these things from some of the major retailers, some of the global names. We wanted to have a real local feel to it. It was great because also it meant that I could chat to local businesses and get the information about Community Rail out there, and they started to have an appreciation of what we do as well. So we had a lovely drink from Warwickshire Gin Company. It was alcohol free, just in case anybody's concerned. We also had some chocolate from Henley Chocolates, which was lovely, and I definitely did not have a free sample of that. We also had some lovely artists donate some of their cards so that we could write thank you messages in, as well as the Samaritans who donated a pen and just a little sort of a card for people just in case they wanted to talk to anybody. As I said, we also went to the local garden centres. So again, we tried to not go to the major sort of national retailers. We wanted to support local, and we also wanted to help, if they hadn't already, the local adoption groups establish those bonds and those relationships with garden centres. The pictures that you can see are just of the items that we put in the pack, and also when we were able to go out, or when I was able to go out with my bootload full of goodies to visit some of the station adopters to pass those bags on. they were really well received, and I really hope that the volunteers do know how much we do appreciate them. I don't think Community Rail would have half the impact it does at the moment without them. So if we move on to some of the other projects that we've supported this year, so if we could go on to the next slide, please. So one of the major projects has been Backtrack. Now, Backtrack was actually developed by a group of other CRPs, and it was an anti-trespass campaign. It was aimed at young people, and it wanted to encourage them to engage with social media and share the anti-trespass message. And the CRP actually funded one of the main prizes for that competition. It will also be returning in June this year, so I'm really looking forward to seeing if we can get some more submissions from Warwickshire as well for it. We've also supported the Women in Community Rail breathing space sessions, which have been online sessions for anybody involved in community rail, and we've covered topics such as how to achieve a work-life balance, some of the difficulties that we found working in isolation, and we've also provided support for new people who are new to the community rail world, who might have started like me just before lockdown, or as some people have right in the middle of lockdown, which hats off to them if they started during that time. We've also been really proud to be part of several webinars. So last year we were part of the Community Rail Network Recovery and Renewal webinar, and we've also participated in the Children Rail Stakeholder Conference. Also, more recently in March, we were one of the case studies for the Community Rail Network's Community Rail Across Britain reports. Well worth a read if you want to find out about community rail in your local areas. I'm assuming most people are probably from this area, but I know we have got some people joining us from elsewhere in the country. So I've mentioned the Community Rail Network, and this has been one of the organisations that's provided us constant advice and support since the inception of the CRP. So what I'll do in a minute, I've just remembered that I will quickly check if there are any questions about what we've done before I introduce Paul. I hope I've just given you a bit of a glimpse into what we've done over the past year. It has been a very different year, but it's also been brilliant to be part of the community rail world at this particularly difficult time. I can see that there are no questions at the moment, so what I'll do, I'd like to hand you over to Paul Webster. He is the Community Rail Support and Development Manager, and he's going to share with us the view from the Community Rail Network. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, thanks, Kirsty, for driving the slides. Hopefully, something will come up in a minute. Oh, yeah, so that's me. So what I want to do for the next sort of 10 minutes or so is just to go through a little bit of a sort of background to sort of what's happening nationally, talk a little bit about what's been happening around the country over the last year, and also give you some sort of thoughts about the future and where community rail might be going as we sort of look to what comes next. Okay, so yeah, that's me, and that's my details on there. Next slide, please. So Community Rail Network, we're the national organisation, just for anybody who's not familiar with us and what we do. The national organisation that supports around 70 community rail partnerships, and it says hundreds of station adoption groups, station friends groups around the whole of the UK. For anybody who isn't familiar, up until this time last year, pretty much April 2020, we were the Association of Community Rail Partnerships, and we rebranded and renamed during lockdown, as you do, which is a whole nother story in its own way, but we'll leave that one for now. So yeah, Community Rail Network, and we're there to support the development of grassroots community rail organisations, station adoption groups. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, we sort of Julia sort of talked about last year and the things that have happened, and pretty much it all seemed on March 16th, 2020, a date that will be sort of stuck in my mind for a long time to come, was sort of the last time that I went out on a train for, well, at that time 4 months. Last time I met face to face with a community rail partnership or a station group, and then for sort of the next, well, 4 months as it was then, and then we had a brief period, didn't we, last sort of autumn, when we were sort of all allowed to go back out, and I sort of very briefly got back out and met a few CRPs and station groups, but otherwise it was sort of watching trains from afar on my my statutory weekly walk or daily walk, my daily exercise, or being able to spy them from the car park when we all went for our sort of weekly shop and queued up in the trolley queue. And in some ways, and to a lot of us, it felt as though, well, what can community rail do now? We can't travel, we can't meet people. Is community rail just going to be put on hold? But as Julia's mentioned, and as you'll see, things didn't stop there. So next slide, please. Because community rail is more than just trains. It's more than just being there actually on the trains or doing activities on trains. It's about the links with the local communities. Community rail comes from, as I said, from the grassroots up. It comes from people and people's concerns and people's desire to link communities better with a whole range of activities and a whole range of ways to travel. So it's much wider than just the railway. Next slide, please. So just some examples here from around the country that I thought I'd share with you, just to show sort of the impact and how community rail is making a difference across the whole of the UK. So just across the way, I guess, from you in Worcestershire, the community rail partnership there ran a volunteer-led activity to create small stitches, small sort of cross-stitch tapestries, which have all been worked together into one what's going to be an 18-meter long train. Unfortunately, because of all the restrictions over the last year, it's in storage at the moment, but once we can get out in the summer, then Peter over in Worcestershire, the community rail officer over there, is going to put that on display at a station, and the 300 people, 300 volunteers from across the Worcestershire community rail partnership area will be able to see their work all put together. In the centre there, on the Isle of Wight, that's the Isle of Wight Community Rail Partnership. They're fortunate to have one of their stations has got a community kitchen based at it, which is normally a very popular cafe for rail passengers. Obviously, with nobody travelling by train last summer, the cafe turned its hand to producing meals for the local community, and many thousands of meals were produced by the staff at within the community kitchen there, which went out to vulnerable families, to people across the Isle of Wight and parts of Hampshire as well, who were finding it difficult to find sort of food for themselves. And that's now continued through the second sort of period of lockdown earlier this year, and they're currently fundraising to keep that scheme going as a sort of a permanent feature of that community rail partnership. Up in the top right, 3 of the CRPs in the East Midlands, so part of the East Midlands Railway network, they partnered with their local food banks and became collection points for food parcels donated by the public, sometimes brought in by train to the stations on the CRP line, and then distributed out or collected by the local food bank and distributed out to communities in need across the East Midlands. And then down the bottom, that is Matt Fraser, who is the community rail manager at Southeastern, who's also a bit of a pub quiz leader, and he turned his hand to linking with all the volunteers at some of the stations in the southeastern part of the country in Kent to run a number of Zoom pub quizzes type type activities to really sort of bring together people who could connect virtually, who could connect using using Zoom, and continue that that way of people being able to see each other, if only on a small screen, but have a bit of fun as well. And that was through the Kent Community Rail Partnership. Next slide, please. And then as we moved into sort of I suppose the second lockdown, really, this was as we sort of looking into early 2021, and some restrictions were being lifted, but actually CRPs across the country were realizing that there were I suppose in some ways long-lasting impacts to the community and things that they needed to address that that again were more than just what community rail partnerships maybe we thought of doing. So just a couple of examples there. Won't go into all the details. There's sort of different ways to express community rail, either through BSL sign language with the station at Hanforth there. The Dwell Time project, which is on the Penistone line between Sheffield and Huddersfield, and they've worked with Cross Country over a number of years actually to create this this thing called Dwell Time, which is all about that sort of thinking time that you've got when you're at a station. There's a number of posters and now a magazine and a website that have been created to help you to sort of think and sort of think about what life means in some ways, sort of help with mental health awareness, and a lot of the stories, the artwork, the poetry that's gone into that magazine and on the website has been created by people during lockdown as a way to sort of express how they are coping with the difficult situation that they find themselves in. And then at Alsager in North Staffordshire, that's become a dementia-friendly, it's a dementia-friendly town, and that's extended to the station where the Alzheimer's Society there at Alsager have done an audit of the station and are working with East Midlands Railway and London North Western around making the station and its environment more dementia-friendly. Next slide, please. So what have we been doing nationally at Community Rail Network? So a few examples here. We've recently produced a number of publications and reports about the difference that community rail makes. There's one for the 6 of them, so the country's been sort of divided into 6 sections, and there's one for the Midlands and the East, and that's some of the facts and figures there for the difference that community rail is making in the in sort of the Midlands and the East of the country, with the number of volunteers, a number of community rail partnerships, and if you download those, they're on the Community Rail Network website, communityrail.org.uk. That's got details in there of them, and you can download and find out what the differences that community rail has been making, and what CRPs are planning on doing for the future. So there's sort of a look ahead to what those CRPs I've got lined up over the next year or so. Also the impact tool, which is something that we've developed over the last year or so, which is a way of being able to record and track the impact, the difference that your activity is making at a station, whether that's station adoption groups or community rail partnerships, and is a way of recording, like I said, the time spent at the station, but also as like your scrapbook, to upload pictures, upload video clips, audio clips, and record how the work that you've done at a station has made a difference, as sort of a little package of information for you to then be able to keep or to share with funders, with stakeholders, with other partners that want to be able to see how much impact community rail has made in a local community. Next slide, please. So other resources. So I can't go into all of these in a lot of detail now. So if any of those sort of areas grab your interest, or something that you want to know a bit more about, then please do download those. They're all in the resources section of our website. So we've been looking at looking to the future with how young people are going to get involved, or how we can involve more young people in community rail, working with local media outlets, so telling your story, putting together a good press release, some sort of tips and ideas, about how to market the work of a CRP to partners and sort of media outlets that want to know more about what Community Rail is doing. And as sort of related to the previous slide about using an outcomes-based approach. Sounds a bit fancy, but it's a way to show the difference, the outcomes of the work that Community Rail partnerships are doing. So all those are available there to download. Next slide, please. Some other things that we've got coming up, which might be useful for people. So a couple of webinars. Obviously, we're only doing webinars rather than face-to-face events for the moment, but in June, looking at Rail's green credentials and promoting modal shift. So looking at how we can promote more activities that are or sort of more interactions with other modes of transport. On the 30th of June, there's going to be a national campaign across the whole country, community rail partnerships and train operating companies, looking at how we can talk about summer days out being better by train and public transport, and promoting that that means of transport, and I guess also looking at local events and how you can promote that more. In the end of the year, so our Community Rail Awards, which were only a virtual event last year, are going to be an online event on the 9th of December. So there are dates coming up for Community Rail partnerships and station groups to be submitting their entries. And please do, because there's so much good things going on, so many things have been happening in Community Rail over the last year that we want to recognise those and for you to recognise what you've been doing. And also looking at other ways to connect Community Rail and provide support to Community Rail partnerships. So training bursaries there, and on the next slide there is also information about how you can become a member of Community Rail Network if you're not already. Station adoption groups, the benefits of being a station adoption group member, the funding that's available from us for members, and also other resources. On the previous slide there was a mention there of networks that we have, whether that's gardening networks for community rail officers, chairs, around marketing and communications, ways to bring people together online, but sort of hopefully in the future face to face. There was one other thing. I know that we are running a little bit short on sort of my time. What I just wanted to do, if you could just, Kirsty, if you could just, so go on to the next one, sorry, yeah. Well, and then I know we are sort of a little bit short on time. Just on to the next slide, that's the one. So just wanted to, oh no, one before, sorry, yeah. Just wanted to sort of, I suppose, leave people with some thoughts about how Community Rail can look to the future, and the sort of some of the things that we're thinking about, and I guess that you as stakeholders, as station adoption groups and community rail partnerships need to be perhaps thinking about. So we know that the rail industry is going to change, that the nature of sort of rail franchising and the way that rail services operate in many ways is going to be transformed. Rather than franchising, there's going to be things called national rail contracts, and Community Rail does, we believe, feature in those, and we're hoping that that it will do even more so than it does at the moment. So now's the time to be sort of informing train companies, informing partners about the difference, and telling those stories. So as Julie has sort of showed earlier on, those good news stories about the difference that Community Rail makes, keep sort of putting those to the fore, keep putting those out there in whatever press channels that you can. Looking at how travel patterns have changed, we won't be travelling abroad as much as people have done in the past. This summer is going to be probably the big opportunity to, as it says at the bottom there, shop, stay and invest local, where people will be making sort of days out by train locally, people will be looking at how they can explore more around their local area, and now's the time for our stations, for community rail partnerships, to really promote the difference that that rail travel makes and the benefits of rail travel. The one above there about decarbonisation, that's I suppose the next big thing as we look to the future for how travel can be more sustainable, and how rail travel can be the way of the future. So we need to be doing more of that and promoting more around better ways to travel. And the final thing just on the right there is just thinking about that social value. So what is the extra difference that community rail brings? Sort of a thought to leave people with is what's the extra added bonus that community rail can bring, and the actual social value, rather than just sort of the rail travel. Okay, thank you, Kirsty. There is one sort of final slide with my details on, if you just can jump right to the last one, if anybody wants to get in touch with me. Oh, showing kindness, yes, and that's my contact details on there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. A whistle-stop tour of
A bit of a rush though, sorry about that. Yes. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely fine. And I would encourage anybody, if you do want to find out more about sort of Community Rail Network, and also about other CRPs in other areas of the country and what they've been doing, then please do go to the website. It's quite amazing how you think, well, a CRP is a CRP, but the way that people interpret it and work with their communities to really respond to the needs of the communities is fantastic. So thank you again, Paul, for that. And I can't say enough times how many times I've been blown away by the determination and passion for that station adopters have for their stations. I've said before, for quite a lot of the past year, they weren't allowed to work at their stations, and yet as soon as they could, they've been out injecting warmth and personality to their areas. So our next speaker will be from the Friends of Henley Railway Station, who only adopted their station in April last year. But they've really managed to engage the local community and businesses to create a fantastic transformation to a previously unloved station. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Angela Oakey now.
Good morning, everybody. First slide, please. My name's Angela Oakey, and I'm one of the volunteers at Henley and Arden Station. Today, I would like to share with you our journey so far, our recruitment of volunteers, and how we set up our own Friends of Henley group, which we're now hoping to gain charitable status with. I will also share with you the names of the key people within the railway groups who have helped us on our journey so far, the importance of community engagement, and finally our plans for the future. Next slide, please. As Julia said, our journey began in March 2020 with the adoption of the station platforms. It all began with myself and Chris, who had the desire to adopt the station platforms, with the intention of eventually securing the dilapidated station building for use as a community hub. Just as we began the journey, lockdown hit the country. However, I would say we actually used this to our advantage and managed to use this opportunity to recruit many volunteers who suddenly found themselves at home with nothing else to do. As you can remember, the weather was actually great last year, the weather was great, and we managed to recruit a large amount of helpers. Very soon, the bleak and unloved platforms were brought back to life with new beds and lots of new plants. We went rummaging around the station area and retrieved hundreds of large paving stones, which we've used to create more and more planting areas around the station. It's amazing what a lick of white masonry paint can achieve to the overall look. Next slide, please. As you can see from the photos, we have some before and after photos of our planting beds, which only took, that was a before photo and then an after, which took a couple of months to transform. Next slide, please. With volunteers, we've continued to grow our volunteer bank, and we now have 12 regular volunteers contributing in excess of 20 hours per week. Due to the amount of hours committed, we soon ran out of things to do on the platform area. So undeterred, the volunteers, as you can see from the photo, began to attack the overgrown, and at the time, which was a drug haven of a car park. This project resulted in over 20 truckloads of weeds, overgrown shrubs, all being cleared and removed by the volunteers. Also had a positive impact on the drug activity. Due to the increased activity of our volunteers wearing their high-vis jackets, we found the drug dealers soon were drove away from our station area. Off the back of the success and with the amount of interest from residents, we decided to form an official Friends of Henley Railway group. We've since applied for charitable status. However, we've not achieved this on our own, and we would like to thank the CRP, especially Julia, our appointed Community Rail Officer, Fraser Pithy from the Friends of Shakespeare Line, and Faye Easton from West Midlands Rail, all of whom have been instrumental in our success to date. Next slide, please. We have engaged with the local community from the beginning. The creation of our Facebook page has been a great way to communicate to the residents during lockdown. We now have nearly 500 followers with engagements in excess of 5,000 per week. Next slide. We've also worked closely with the local newspaper, who have featured our journey so far on a number of occasions. This has led to interest from local businesses who have supported us not only financially, but with free plants, metalwork structures, building and landscaping material. We have rewarded them for their generosity with free publicity on social media and newspaper articles. I would really recommend any adopter groups to engage with their community and local businesses, as it really does appear to drive support and funding. Next slide, please. Another success was the implementation of our children's planting area, which we built within the car park at the station. This was again supported by local businesses who provided the wooden planters, topsoil and plants, but also our court leet, who you can see in the photo there. Again, this received publicity in the local newspaper. Moving forward, we are looking to secure a community licence from Network Rail for the disused siding. With the help of the CRP and Bee Friendly Trust, we have already raised £15,000, which we intend to use to create the first Shakespeare garden in the UK. The garden will comprise of 3 17-foot raised planters, each of which will have a Shakespearean quotes and will feature plants from a total of 5 of his plays. There will also be a large metal statue of Shakespeare as a centrepiece in the garden. Next slide, please. This money has also funded bespoke artwork at the station, created by local artists, and have been used to brighten up the boarded station building. I'm sure you will agree the view from the passing trains has certainly improved following this initiative. Next slide, please. That is the final picture of that. So that would be the view from the train going past from our currently boarded up station. Finally, after 18 months of negotiation, we have just secured agreement for a community lease to adopt the station building. The intention is to renovate the Victorian derelict building and bring it back to its former glory. It will then form a community artisan coffee shop, cafe and microbrewery. This is where the hard work begins, as we anticipate the cost to be in the region of £250,000. We've already secured funding from the CRP, West Midlands Rail, our parish council and the Friends of Shakespeare Line, and currently in talks with district councils, the Community Rail Network and the Heritage Railway Fund, as well as several local businesses and other grant funders. Last slide, please. In short, our journey has been hard work, but very rewarding. The platforms and car park areas have been transformed with landscaping, planting and artwork. Our overall aim has always been to increase footfall to the station and to encourage more visitors to our town to travel by rail. If you've adopted a station or platform, I would encourage you to use the resources and contacts I've talked about this morning. I'm not saying the journey was easy, but with the right people on side, transformations of our stations and platforms are a real possibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela, and it's been a real pleasure as well to it's been a real pleasure to sort of be with you from the start of this journey and just to see the amazing transformation at Henley Station, and I can't wait to get that building back into use as well. We've had just one comment from someone saying that children planting area idea is amazing. So hopefully we'll be seeing that soon. We have had a question through. Neil, I'm going to ask you a question in just a minute because we've had a couple of other questions which are a bit more specific to Angela. So Angela, one of the questions is, how did you approach businesses to explain the benefits of them supporting the adopters? Do you have any sort of hints or tips for any other station adoption groups going forwards?
Yeah, basically, I think one of our most successful was the Facebook page. We started that journey on and quickly gained lots and lots of followers. And we started sharing our journey on there. I think it's what Paul Webster just said. It's about getting out your before and after. So we've started to explain our journey, what we want to achieve. We did approach some local companies direct. So we approached the local planting nursery and RS Adams, who are building merchants. And then each time they came on board and helped us out, we pushed that out not only on our Facebook page, but as I say, in local newspapers and on Henley Matters, which has 6,500 residents. So very quickly, the local businesses could see the benefit of helping us to get them free publicity as well. So, I mean, for example, RS Adams donated all the topsoil for us. It's a local company in the town, and they come back and they could not, but nobody actually knew that they provided topsoil. Everybody thought they were hard landscaping. So their sales have shot through the roof on that. So it's all about what we see. We don't try to ask for anything for free. We like to work in conjunction with these businesses. If that helps.
Brilliant, thank you, Andy. That's great. Yeah, again, can't stress enough how amazing that transformation has been. There is another question here from Neil. I think it's probably more appropriate for Paul Webster to answer. So, Paul, if you're able to just come back on camera quickly. So the question is, as part of the national levelling up exercise, is it not time that all users of West Midlands trains enjoy the privileges afforded to residents of the West Midlands conurbation, which includes Coventry, part of Warwickshire, i.e. travel concession for pensioners extended to rail travel in addition to bus travel? Neil, firstly, if we can't fully answer that question in the time that we've got, because I am aware we are running over, then we will make sure that all questions that are asked are answered by the relevant people after the event. I'll just hand over to Paul to see if he's got any sort of answer for that, or if it's something that we need to follow up on a little bit later.
I think it probably is something that needs to be taken. It's not something that Community Rail Network directly can sort of fix or make a change to, but certainly we could speak to the right people. It's sort of not within our gift to make any changes like that. It would need to be West Midlands Rail exec possibly. But if you've got the question noted down, then by all means email me afterwards, and we'll see who the right appropriate people are to look into that.
That's great, thank you, Paul. So Neil, we will get back to you on that question. I think that is a very valid point. We are running over very slightly. So firstly, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Angela for agreeing to be one of our panelists. We will have time, hopefully, for more questions later. And if you do think of anything, just pop it down in the chat or the questions function. So I'm just having a quick look. If there was another question, I think what we'll do at the moment is we'll go to the comfort break. During the break, you're going to be able to see the latest videos from Avanti West Coast and Cross Country, as well as a series of photos from the last year. So grab another cuppa if you need it, sit back and enjoy. We'll say that we'll come back at 11:30, so we'll still have a 10-minute break, so you can make a decent cup of tea. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you.
Over the last few months, some have gone further, extra miles, above and beyond. The heroes who've kept Britain going have done us proud. Today, if you've somewhere to be, then trust us, we're ready. Here's how we can all travel safely. Plan your journey in advance and see our website to check for quieter travel times. To manage social distancing, we've reduced the seating capacity on board, so we strongly recommend booking tickets ahead with a seat reservation. We'd prefer to make journeys contactless. That means digital tickets are your best option. Don't forget to bring a face covering along and wear it both at the station and on the train. Also, pack some hand sanitizer. There are hand washing facilities available, but it's a good idea to bring your own too. When you get to the station, we're managing customer flows, so you might have to use a different entrance. Look out for guidance when you arrive. If you haven't already, you can book online up to 5 minutes before. Otherwise, make your way to one of our ticket machines or desks where safety screens are fitted. Use contactless payments if you can. Waiting rooms and first-class lounges are open with extra safety measures in place. We've added lots more signage at stations to help you travel safely, so keep your eyes peeled. And remember, face coverings must be worn at the station as well as on board. If you're exempt, we're working with the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, giving you the option to wear an easy-to-spot lanyard, which lets our team know you have difficulties wearing one. When making your way to the platform, have your ticket ready to show one of our colleagues or to scan through the gate. If you're on a busier service, we might also need to see your seat reservation, so keep it handy. Other people need to get off the train before you get on, so please be patient and allow plenty of space for other passengers to leave the train safely. Your coach letter's on your ticket, so look out for your coach before boarding the train. After you get on, head to your allocated seat, which is reserved with social distancing in mind. Please only use the seat you've been allocated. If you're travelling with members of your household, you can sit together, but please keep a safe distance from others. Each train has been deep cleaned at every turnaround station and treated with an antibacterial mist, which releases powerful, long-lasting sanitizer. Our team will also regularly wipe down key touch points, surfaces and toilets which are available for use during your journey. If you need refreshments when on board, shops on all our Pendolino trains are open. Keep your ticket on you and we'll check it at a safe distance. When you arrive, please stay seated until the train stops. Gather your things, including any used gloves and face coverings, and make sure to take everything with you. Give each other plenty of space when leaving the train, and remember, you'll need to keep your face covering on when at the station. Lastly, wherever you're going, we're glad we could get you there safely. We hope you have a great trip and look forward to travelling with you again soon. Safe travels.
Since the pandemic hit, our way of life has changed. Travelling on the railway is no exception. My name is Gert. Today, I'll be going cross-country. I'll be showing you a few easy steps that you can take so you too can travel with confidence. Step 1, book in advance. To make your journey as safe and as comfortable as possible, you'll need to book online, and the cross-country website is the best place to start. But first, cheers! Online, you can see all cross-country train information about coronavirus and its effects on your travel plans. Here, you can also check your journey before you travel and book your tickets in advance to reserve your seat and opt for travelling when the train is quieter. By booking online, I don't have a physical ticket, but an e-ticket instead, and this can be seen and stored on the app. It's the day of travel, and before or at the station, I can use the app to see if my train is on time. Inside the station, there is a one-way system and plenty of measures in place to ensure social distancing. To make your travel as safe as possible, cross-country trains have employed extra cleaners who are collectively cleaning for an extra 2,400 additional extra hours each week. The cleaning they do covers over 15 miles of surface, which is the equivalent area of 264 football pitches. The booking system ensures that your allocated seats meet social distancing requirements, but you must wear a face mask on board at all times, unless of course you're eating or drinking. But once you're done, pop your face mask back on, unless of course you're exempt. Cross-country trains fully support and promote the Sunflower Lanyard scheme for those who are exempt. Whilst on board, you can access free cross-country Wi-Fi. And don't forget, if you need a ticket, it's on the app.
Next station stop for this journey will be Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent, next station stop.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Can I have a tea, please? I'm aboard a static catering trolley with a range of refreshments and hand sanitizer too. Today I had a very safe and comfortable journey, and you can too. Today I travelled with confidence. I travelled with cross country.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. Just while the photos are going through to the end, firstly, we've just had a comment from Evan just to say thank you to all the speakers to date. And again, we really couldn't do this without them. We have also noticed that there is a hand up. We will take questions a little bit later. I'm just conscious that we are running over slightly by 5 minutes. The AGM is scheduled to finish at 12:10. I understand that on the invite, the email, sorry, that was sent out confirming your registration, it said that it was only an hour long. I hope you are able to stay with us just for the last 40 minutes. If you're not, then we will try and make a recording of this available through our website, so you won't miss out on any of the community rail news. Again, feel free to put questions, comments in the chat. We do use any sort of comments and feedback to feed into our activities, so they are really useful for us. But for now, the next part of the programme is going to be started by Laura Donnelly, who's the marketing manager from West Midlands Railway. She's going to be presenting the strategy and activation plan for the Ready When You're Ready campaign. After the presentation, Laura will be joining a panel session with representatives from Avanti West Coast, Chiltern Railways and Cross Country to take any questions about how the train operating companies are reassuring and encouraging people to travel again. So again, please do put your questions in the chat function. If it's something that's not appropriate to the topic, we will get back to you with an answer separately from this event. For now though, I'd like to pass you over to Laura.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me. So thank you very much, Julia. Thank you for inviting me along. Don't worry about the differing names that are going on. I have only recently just changed my name. My name was Laura Redding before, it is now Laura Donnelly. So as Julia says, I am the marketing manager for West Midlands Railway. And today I just wanted to sort of share with you some of our strategic planning for the communicating of welcoming people back to rail, really. This is one campaign that we've been working on, and it'll hopefully give you a very sort of brief overview of what we've had planned. So as you can see on the screen, our tagline, through lots of research and creative planning, from looking at other industries, other train operators, supermarkets, airlines, we have settled on Ready When You're Ready. So this is a strapline that we believe can be scaled up and down depending on any local lockdowns, issues nationally, that would mean that we might have to pull advertising or alter advertising in certain locations. We believe it's a strapline that can be used when we're trying to reassure passengers or to encourage them to travel. Again, it's not pushy, but it does get people thinking. So a sort of top line overview of our plan. Next slide, please. Gives a bit of a timeline and gives you an idea on how we're planning to move forward. So you will see down the left there with awareness, interest, desire and action. This shows you how we plan to move through reassurance, neutral messaging, and ultimately start to encourage travel again. So this is a strategy based on research where we have taken a look at who our audience is and how we can help them return to rail. So we do have a TV advert that will be going live at the end of this month. It was deferred budget from 2019, and we are basically in a situation of use it or lose it. So we don't have the full media plan signed off and budget wise ready to go, but we are going live with TV at the end of the month. So not the best situation, but we are making the best of the situation. But you can see that Ready When You're Ready is the overarching message. So we are ready with our cleaning, we are ready with our social distancing online tools, we are ready with our staff, we are ready with our flexible products, we are ready to welcome you back, but only when you feel that you are ready to travel again. But how did we come up with this strategy? Next slide, please. So let's look at the audiences. Has that changed? There we go. We completed a lot of research. We surveyed our own customer panels and focus groups to understand what people felt about returning to rail, how they were travelling now, what worried them, what information helped them make decisions. And they got split into categories for targeting. So you can see them here as happy, traveller, concerned, doer, need, persuader, and absolute notter. These are a range of people who are either happy to travel or are not happy. So we aim to focus on the two middle categories that we have combined into need reassurers. They are our biggest opportunity to move into happy travellers and ultimately get them travelling again. We then profiled these people. We got under their skin. What do they read? What do they watch? Which channels do they interact with? How old are they and where do they live? All of this research helped us to decide on that strapline of ready when you're ready, but also the messaging underneath that and the channels and the creative that we ultimately have chosen to use. Next slide, please. So we looked at how to communicate with them. We know that we still need to reassure them. So we have a whole section of messaging around telling them how we clean our carriages, regularly cleaning our stations, our traffic light system, which is our online "How busy is my train" tool. Behind the scenes with our media buying agency, we have built a tracker of our audiences as well to show that we hope as the reassurance messaging goes out there, we will start to see our audience going down from our need reassurers and into our happy travellers. As that happens, that's our cue to then start going through our messaging strategy from our reassurance messaging into the tapping into meaningful moments, and then ultimately into the encouraging travel. So tapping into meaningful moments is showing people what they could be enjoying, seeing friends, enjoying time with family, getting out and about to all those places we've missed. From here, we then go to encouraging travel, where we actively promote products, price points, and give them the information to ultimately book that ticket. Throughout all of this, we also have lockdown variants, just in case. Even though obviously we've been promised that this will ultimately be the last lockdown, we thought we would have them factored in. We know from our extensive research and planning that before we can start encouraging travel and actively promoting products, we have to go through these steps. People need reassurance. When they are then ready, that's when they will obviously, we can move on to that encouraging travel. So I will now take you on a very whistle-stop tour of our comms. Next slide, please. So we have our "How busy is your train" tool. Not sure what happened on the formatting here, but essentially this is an online way for people to check trains in advance for social distancing. So they can either do this in advance on the website or through social media on the day. So it means that people can actively have a look and see which trains are busier than others. And it is done in a traffic light system of red, amber or green. Next slide, please. We will continue to highlight and communicate all the normal messages that we've been doing throughout COVID. So train times are changing, the plan ahead, travel at quieter times. So there are staple messages. We've been using them. We will continue to. Next slide, please. We will also show what we're doing in terms of cleaning, social distancing at stations, and how people can plan ahead. So we have made a few different videos of what has changed at stations whilst you've been away, how to maneuver through stations, what our staff are there and doing to help. We also highlight things like face coverings and exemptions, working with sunflower lanyards. So lots of information to help people plan before they travel. Next slide, please. So our main creative, we knew that people were really interacting well with real people. So we did a real people focus. All our research showed the audience would relate best to that. So we profiled our geographical areas for the best representation. We included specific comms as well for travellers with impairments. So we did 4 photo shoots across 14 locations with 15 crew and 48 talent. It was hectic with all the COVID guidelines in place as well. But so far we've created 3 TV advert variants, so with masks on, with masks off, and lockdown versions. We've got 14 digital templates with 31 different types of messaging, which actually makes up 248 variants to run through dynamic display. This means that we can alter and change messaging really short notice. We can be reactive to what's happening. We built this plan to be fluid. We knew that things could change in a heartbeat. We wanted to be ready. Next slide, please. So a little sneak peek of some of our creative. These are our staff images. These aren't edited, but it just gives you a little insight into them. It's showing a real wide range of the jobs on the railway, warm, welcoming images. Next slide, please. We then have some images here of the talent and the lifestyle aspects, again, highlighting lots of different ages, genders, races, different jobs, different demographics. We did a lot of research into who we needed to represent here. Next slide, please. So our TV advert, I have put the script on the left there. It has been created with lockdown variants. And then the images that we took on all those photo shoots, you can see how we start to use them in artwork as well. So on the right there, one of our train drivers, Bushra, and then also we've done some specific comms around the older generation, people who have probably been asked to shield throughout all of this, and how we can encourage them back to travel as well. Next slide, please. So this is a very top line plan to just show that we do have a channel strategy in place. All of the channels have been chosen based on our audience, what relates for them, what channels they already engage with, so we know it will work hard for us. We really want the budget to work the hardest it possibly can. So we've chosen channels based on our audience engagement stats that we already have. Next slide, please. We have also completely reorganized our website hub. So it's been designed to reflect customer journey around the page. We've done loads of research into what other train operators are doing, what other travel companies are doing, airlines in particular. We took a lot of data where people are traveling around our site, where they're clicking, what they're doing, and we've reorganized it based on that. We also have to adhere to quite a lot regular audits, so we have to factor that in as well. And we've also considered accessibility to make sure that the most relevant information is readily available and easy to find. Next slide, please. We've reworked our content pages around stations and destinations. For when people are searching to return to travel, we have made the layout, again, fully accessible, the right information that people were searching for. We've made it easy to find. It's right there at the top. People don't have to search. They've been fully SEO optimized, so organically they will start to appear when people are searching as well. Big projects, they're still ongoing, but the destinations pages, it's really rich information there about local amenities. We've also done a focus on small independents, so we're talking about smaller community-based items that people can find at those locations. Next slide, please. Another item that we felt is that our stations felt a little desolate. We've not had people in them for so long. Our station staff miss seeing people. So we thought, how can we help our station staff welcome people back? So we've done a few station welcomes as well. We've created posters, banners, and we've used some of the imagery from our photo shoots, but then also for WMR, some of the illustrations that we use in our main marketing campaigns. And we've created some assets to have at stations. We're also looking at tannoy announcements to give people not just the safety information and the sort of social distancing information, but actually welcome them back as well. If you just go on to the next slide, I've just popped some examples of some of the artwork there. So we've done lamppost banners. This is the illustrations. These are based on the photographs that we've had taken. So these are illustrations of our staff that are out there welcoming people back. So that is a whistle-stop tour through welcome back comms. Obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, but I hope that's just been a bit informative on our Ready When You're Ready campaign.
Thank you, Laura. That's great. Yeah, it's amazing how much thought has to go into it. It's not just a simple case of we'll make a TV ad and then send that out. I mean, yeah, hats off to anybody in the train industry trying to work out around all the restrictions and if we're going to go into lockdown or not. What I'd like to do now very quickly is just invite the other panelists for this section. So we've got Jodie Ball from Cross Country, we've got William Knighton from Chiltern Railways, and we've got Craig Mortiboys from Avanti West Coast. And I'm just inviting anybody to, if you've got any questions for the train operating companies as to their reassurance messages, any specific messages for Laura, please do put it in the chat function now or raise your hand. We have had one hand raised from Diane. So Diane, if you're still here and if you are able to unmute yourself and you've got a question, then please do so. This is where we see, no, okay.
Let's put our hand down.
It's down. No problem. We have had one comment saying, I think a way to encourage train travel is to have some kind of integration with bus transport for the final mile-ish to complete your journey from your destination rail station and purchase it on the bus service to your departing rail station at the beginning of the journey. Do any of I mean, it sounds like a good idea. Is this something that's doable, do you think?
Oh, I did. I'll jump in there first. So we do some of this at our stations at the moment. So, for example, if you're travelling to Bicester Village and you're on the train that takes you to Bicester North, there's a shuttle bus that will take you through to there. And we've got through ticketing on some other routes, particularly where there's new housing developments. So if money can be secured through developer contributions to support a bus journey that goes to the station to support commuting, for example. There's a lot more to do, particularly around leisure travel, I think, for sort of that seamless rail and bus trip to a National Trust property, for example. And this is something which we're doing quite a lot of work on at the moment, and you can expect to hear more. I'd also say that there's a similar opportunity, and again, it depends on people's sort of capabilities around cycling. So at Aylesbury Vale Parkway, we've recently installed e-bikes. So there's some docks, and they plug in there, they charge up, because 5 kilometres away, along this gorgeous bicycle route through the Buckinghamshire countryside, is Waddesdon Manor, where there's also an e-dock point. So the idea is to encourage leisure travel, sustainable leisure travel, as people come back, rather than drive all the way to this lovely National Trust property, take a train to Aylesbury Vale Parkway, and hop on a bicycle. And I absolutely agree with the question asked that there's buses are similarly an opportunity as well.
Thank you, William. Diane, I think you've got your hand back up, so I'm just going to unmute you if you'd like to ask your question.
Yes, it was one I've already just spoken to Paul about in the break, was at our local fresh air, clean air meeting we had last year before lockdown in Leamington. The question was asked about using senior bus passes on the trains, at least during COVID, between Warwick and Leamington, and it met a very cool reception from the council. The other thing was I wanted to ask William what the latest update is on the Chiltern franchise. I sort of lost track of when it was to be renewed and all that sort of thing.
Well, I'm not sure who wants to hop on the first point first, and then I'll give a brief update.
Okay, thank you.
I think, William, if you want to give your update, I have got another question for the rest of the panelists.
Well, sure, just very quickly on the Chiltern Railways franchise. Of course, it comes to an end on the 31st of December of this year. As you can imagine, we're currently in quite detailed discussions with the Department for Transport on what will come after. And you can expect to hear sort of more from us on how the franchise won't be a franchise, will be, you know, a new form of rail service, how it will look in the new year.
Brilliant, thank you, William. We are running over. Like all community rail events, we've just got too much to talk about. I have got a very quick question, so I will go around and just ask this to all of you for a very brief answer. And the question that's been asked is, how can volunteers support the messaging that the TOCs are putting out there about reassurance and kind of encouraging people back? So have you got any top tips for the station adopters, the volunteers who already do so much? Is there anything they can do to help support what we're all trying to do, is getting people back to the railways? If I go to Laura first, if you've got any tips.
Yeah, and we actually have toolkits and information. So I will be starting to share them out through yourself, Julia, to then obviously share through your networks, and the same through, I work really closely with Faye Easton, which I'm sure most people know, and we actually will be providing messaging and items that we are happy for people to use.
Brilliant, thank you, Laura. And Jodie.
So cross country a little bit different. We don't own stations, so it's quite hard for us to get our messaging out there. So we are doing a lot on our social channels and through our email database. So there'll always be loads of interaction on there. We've done loads of stuff that have crossed over with some of like memes and stuff that have gone out there, like the Colin the Caterpillar stuff, and April Fool's Day we also engaged with. So engaging with those kind of events has really helped, really. And if station adopters and yourself, Julie, can just interact with things like that. And we're always looking for projects as well. Our project fund is now open, so we can engage in that way as well. So we're always open to that, and there's loads of stuff happening across our network.
Brilliant, thank you, Jodie. And Craig, how about for Avanti West Coast?
Yeah, I think it's a similar message. We've got some amazing staff at our stations, but the additional support of volunteers to be there as the sort of the local community ambassadors, whether it's helping to keep stations looking amazing and welcoming, or if it's that friendly face when somebody arrives at a station for the first time in a while, giving them that extra sort of reassurance. Events like you had at the sort of the Acts of Kindness event at Coventry, things like that, where there's a friendly face to say hello and make people feel comfortable.
Brilliant, thank you, Craig. And William, do you have anything else to add? I think everyone sort of covered most things.
Exactly, just echoing exactly what people have said already. So all I'd add is, you know, what a difference a month makes, right? Now that people are both customers and also volunteers are back at stations, it's really visible. You know, our frontline staff are a lot happier because they have the familiar faces coming back, both their regular season ticket customers and also the volunteers, and it restores that community sense at the station, which I think is an important part of the broader reassurance of things going back to, hopefully, normality. So keep on doing the fantastic work that you're doing.
Thank you,
William. Really appreciated, so thank you. No
problem. All the Twitter accounts from the TOCs have really upped their game. I think there's some very humorous things. Thank you so much for all our top panelists, and also I just want to say thank you again for supporting the CRP and the work that we do. We are going to move on now to the next part of our agenda. Very quickly, there is an answer from Nigel and questions saying about there is a plus bus ticket available to rail passengers, enabling customers to travel on the local bus network serving the particular rail station they are travelling to. So if you're interested in that, sort of do look it up, or if you need to find a link for that, then please do get in contact with me. So what I'd like to do now is just introduce you to two of our station adopters. We have John, who's adopted Stratford Parkway Station, and Dewey, who leads the adopters at Kenilworth Station. They're both very different stations, but both John and Dewey have adapted to the station environment and have shown that how any sort of space can be transformed with just a little bit of love. Unfortunately, due to a technical hitch, we can't actually see John, but we can still hear him. Thank you both for joining us. And I guess my first question is, why did you decide to adopt your stations? Dewey, do you want to go first with that one? So like all the best events, we always have technical hitches.
Hi, Julie, you're on mute at the moment.
Right, okay. That's one of the things, right? So the reason why we did was when we were in Kenilworth, the whole station opening was a big fanfare, and then we went to the station, and the station had this garden that just started becoming run down over the years before we took over. And yeah, so that was one of the motivations, was just entering the station, you came across all these dead trees and shrubs and weeds, overgrown weeds. So it was first something that I and my partner thought of. Then I got some of my friends talking about it, and I and Rosalind decided to have a small community group, and this could be our pet project. And it started like that. We had no idea how much work we had to do at the station and how feasible things would be at the time of adopting. All we wanted to do was give an opportunity for community to come together, and station with its big parking lot was kind of prime thing to look at.
Thank you, Julie. And how about yourself, John? I mean, Stratford Parkway doesn't scream out station adopter when you first look at it. So what prompted you to adopt that station? Ooh. John, I think you might just need to unmute yourself if possible, please. It's going to be lovely when we can go back to face-to-face events where we don't have to ask people to unmute themselves. Hopefully, John, if you can join us, then please do. If not, if technology is sort of causing a bit of a hitch. Julie, I guess you've got a real focus on the station on increasing biodiversity. Why did you decide to sort of focus specifically on that topic?
So last year, so we adopted the station in October 2019, November 2019, but we haven't yet formed like a legal community like what the previous person who gave a talk did. So the thing with Kenilworth Station is it has around 200 square meters of space, but it's at the periphery of the station. So, so sorry about that. So we could look into sections of the station, and by the time we finished one section of the station garden, the other one, and we moved to another one, the first one already had some weeds growing in. So we had a local Kenilworth resident coming and identifying type of weeds we had, and looking into the kind of biodiversity aspect last year. And she found around 32 different varieties of wildflowers that we could actually help grow at the station, and they're naturally growing there, so it's easy to let them grow and just suppress the main when they main weeds when they become rampant, like thistles. And it sort of gave us an idea to dedicate just one corner of the station and as a biodiversity thing. And another thing that we noticed was when we started planting flowers like daffodils and tulips, we saw that naturally we had a lot more butterflies visiting over the years. And so that was another thing to, if we wanted certain type of butterflies, then we can plant certain types of flowers. So we decided to, if we wanted to get more local butterflies, then we plant more local flowers, let the local herbs do their job and just make sure that we contain them. And that was the motivation. And the fact that you see that happening, you see that, we have different varieties of ladybugs and different types of butterflies. We had a particular butterfly which observed at the station garden, which is the easternmost report for United Kingdom. So that was westernmost report for United Kingdom, and that was something really amazing to actually see a photograph and send it to the Butterfly Conservation Society and get that notification.
That's great. I mean, it really shows that, you know, you can have gardens anywhere, you can increase biodiversity anywhere, and it does make a real difference to the station environment as well. John, I don't know if you're able to join in at this time.
Hopefully, I'm ringing in now. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey!
Thank you so much. And I guess one of my main questions to you, John, is, like I said, Stratford Parkway, it's not maybe a destination in its own right, and I know you've had to adapt to things like not having water at the station. So are there any specific things that you've done to resolve these sorts of issues that other station adopters might be able to look at?
Yeah, I mean, access to water is a common problem for lots of station adopters. I know because I've been involved with some other groups as well. In Parkway, more so than most, because I don't have any structures that I can collect water off. There's no buildings there, and there's no mains water connection either, and there's no nearby water courses that I can access. So what I'm looking at is plants that can survive in dry conditions, and also planting boxes that have reservoirs underneath them. So when they fill up with water when it rains, they collect the water internally in the planter and then wick the water up to the plants, so hopefully they can survive dry spells for 2 or 3 weeks. And that's kind of an experiment that's underway at the moment.
I can't wait to see the result of that. I might be putting a few of those into my own garden, because I tend to not always green-fingered. We do have a question from Diane. So Diane, I'll just unmute you if you'd like to ask your question.
It's really an answer to that gentleman. At Warwick, we're just negotiating. I've got to submit a grant application to a local charity for planters. So if you can find funding for that, and also we found funding to have a tap put on the London platform, because our only water was on the Birmingham platform, and it actually required a main line, a water main being taken from my road, which is at the back of the station, up to the boundary of the Network Rail fence, and then very kindly Chiltern and Network Rail agreed to pay for the piping up to the platform. So, you know, if you can find resources for that, I mean, this sort of 15-metre water main cost just under £3,000 to put in, but we now have water on both platforms, which, you know, is just amazing, because we used to have to go down steps and along the thing and up steps and down, you know, lugging, you know, 1 or 2 watering cans, which made watering in a summer evening about 2.5 hours long. But if you can find it somewhere that could give you a grant for that, you could get a water main, you know, a spur put on from a road main for that. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Right. And I do know that, you know, lots of our station doctors have sort of found quite creative solutions to watering. Speaking about sort of the biodiversity, one question that we did get asked for both of you is, we have seen quite a few sort of butterfly boxes and bug hotels sort of cropping up at stations, and they look beautiful, and it's a really lovely way to sort of engage the community. Are they particularly useful in sort of increasing biodiversity, or are there other things that we should be looking at doing on our station platforms and in the station garden to help increase the wildlife there? I'll leave it open to either of you to answer.
I'll let Julie go first, because biodiversity is her thing.
Okay. I was just going to say that the reason I have put them is for some aesthetic sense. What I know, for example, if I want to culture bees, then the hexagonal shape is going to be useful. Sort of, it's been shown that the shape of the beehive plays a big role in getting the right bees. If you want to have a shelter for solitary bees, then you can build a smaller kind of a bee house. But in terms of general biodiversity, it's not only butterflies and bees, it's also earthworms and millipedes and centipedes. If you want to do that, then they can shelter be under any kind of rock. So the idea at Kenilworth Station is to have a boundary of tiles donated where these insects can actually thrive, you know. So yeah, it's I would say not always useful, but looks good, and sometimes insects will go in.
Thank you, Julie. We are going to have to wrap up, I'm afraid, but it's been really interesting to hear about both your experiences, and I'm sure we could probably do a whole session on just gardening aspects at stations, which we're looking to do maybe with our station adopters as a separate group. So thank you both so much for that. What I'd like to move on to is looking forward for the CRP and what we're going to be doing, particularly around supporting social and economic development. Again, there will be an opportunity to ask any questions or put any feedback at the end, so please do put down your thoughts. So what is next for the CRP? Well, the key focus is going to be on how we can support communities coming out the other side of COVID and how we can encourage people back on the railways. So I'm going to talk about a few of our key projects, but if at any point you want to know more about the work that we've got planned, then please do just get in touch. I'm happy to chat community rail all day, even better if there's tea and cake involved. When the AGM closes, there is also a very quick questionnaire that you can fill out where there is an option to provide feedback to the CRP, and it would be fantastic if you could take just a couple of minutes to complete that, just so we can see that we are meeting the needs of the areas that we serve. So the first project I'd like to talk about has been funded by Avanti West Coast, and it will be based at Birmingham International. So the project is called Careers, Creativity and the Commonwealth, and it's in two parts. So the Commonwealth Games is going to have a huge impact throughout the area. I think we'll all be really looking forward to having something live that we can go to and enjoy. Birmingham International Station is going to be a key entry point for those wishing to access some of the events. So the first part of the project will be producing a mural for Platform 1 at the station under the theme of connecting people with place and opportunity. We'll be looking to work with local community groups between Coventry and Birmingham to help create a stunning sort of visual impact when people arrive or pass through the station. The second part of the project will be working with the New Leaf initiative on a coaching, mentoring and employability programme that will result in sustainable employment for the participants at the end of it. The New Leaf initiative are a local grassroots profit for purpose community interest company, and they work to support people with convictions away from crime and into work through training, education, signposting, work experience and programmes which coach, develop and rehabilitate people. We'll also be looking to join up the participants from this part of the project with the mural, also connecting the two elements. And I'm really excited to look to work with such a meaningful group who do such brilliant work within our local communities. Of course, Warwick and Leamington Spa are also going to be hosting some of the events of the Games, which is fantastic. So we are in discussions with Warwick District Council and Chiltern to see how we can make the stations involve fantastic entry points, and also how we can encourage people to use trains to travel to events. Not only that, but we also want to highlight all the other attractions and places of interest that can be accessed from the railway and reflect the huge range of opportunities that our towns hold to ensure that they continue to use the railways long after the Games are finished. So all our projects, they're not just about what we're doing now, but they're also thinking, well, what impact will they have in the future? So another key way in which the CRP is looking to socially and economically support one of its areas is through the Kenilworth Recovery Group. Unfortunately, the new railway station at Kenilworth has been hugely affected by COVID and has only recently seen the return of a service on the line. So after discussions with West Midlands Railway and Warwickshire County Council, the CRP is now chairing the Kenilworth Recovery Group. And we're working with not only with the County Council and West Midlands Railway, but we're also working with the Kenilworth Chamber of Trade, English Heritage Kenilworth Castle, local councillors and key members of the community to develop a plan that not only encourages people to use the railways, but to also better connect the station with the town. We'll be looking at things like wayfinding and signage to and from the station, how to encourage people to come to Kenilworth by the railways, connecting with existing attractions like Kenilworth Castle, and hopefully, restrictions allowing, we'll be doing mini events at the stations and working out how we can market Kenilworth to the surrounding areas. We'll also be looking at the station environment and building on the fantastic work that the Friends of Kenilworth Station already do there. And we'll continue to liaise and work with the Kenilworth Working Group to ensure that at the end of the day, the station and the railway get more patronage, has better links with the local community, and helps to support the independent ticket office, which is at the station building. The last project I want to highlight is called A Day Like This. It's a project delivered by Highly Sprung for the CRP that is designed to promote safe and accessible use of travel by rail for underserved audiences throughout. That'll be done through workshops culminating in a digital installation at Coventry Station. So it's a project that will document and celebrate and share the experiences of young people experiencing their first day trip by train. And it'll be a really joyful opportunity to sort of excite minds and expand horizons of people who may not have used the train that much in the past. There are already schemes to help young people come into Coventry to negotiate buses through organisations like Positive Youth Foundation, but there's nothing comparable on the railway. So this creative approach to breaking down the barriers that some may have to using the railways not only will allow participants to feel more a part of their communities, but they'll also be opened up to other areas and opportunities that can be reached from where they live. With the Year of Coventry City of Culture having started this month, it will also be a part of programme events that people can access, and we'll be able to promote the final installation of the project at other Avanti West Coast stations and other stations within the CRP. So hopefully we'll use those to encourage people to use the railways to visit Coventry. It will also be a great way to highlight at Coventry Station the new community room that Avanti are currently working on at the station and will hopefully be open towards the end of the year. And I'll be making a lot of use of that community room, I think, if I can. So other projects, very quickly, we've got lots on, and there's so many different options. It's brilliant. We're working on a rail safety film which is being produced by Jam AV with Chiltern Railways that we'll use as part of our rail safety lessons in primary schools. We're working with the Be Friendly Trust and Henley Railway Station, as you've heard, on a Shakespeare Garden. We're also working with groups such as the Small Peace Trust alongside Cross Country to deliver a STEM education programme. And we're also in talks with Positive Youth Foundation, the Warwickshire Ramblers, Stoke Aldermore Social Action Partnership to build stronger relationships with the communities we serve. I'll wrap up really quickly. I just want to say perhaps the most important thing that we will continue to do as a CRP is to support our volunteers and the station adopters, because as I said before, I think without them, community rail would still have an impact, but not nearly as much as it does currently. Sorry for that we have run over. Are there any questions at all before we sort of wrap up? Whistle stop tour of the next year ahead. Hopefully this time next year we'll be doing an AGM, but in real life with real people and not just shoulders and heads of people. Okay, I can't see any questions. If you do think of something afterwards, then please just get in touch with me. But for now, I'd like to pass you back to Margaret, our chair, for our closing remarks.
Hi, thank you, Julia. I'll be very brief because I'm conscious that we're slightly over time. So just thanks from me for everybody who's participated today. For me, it's been an incredibly informative and engaging morning. It's great to hear all of the projects, all of the things that are happening out on the ground. I've always been impressed by the hard work and dedication that's shown throughout the world of community rail. On a personal note, I hope to actually be able to get out and about this year to visit some of these projects and see them firsthand. As Julia said, if you do have other suggestions for projects, for things that you want to see come to life on the ground, please contact Julia in the first instance. Thanks again to the guest speakers and the panelists, and for everybody for tuning in today. And finally, our thanks to Kirsty from the West Midlands Combined Authority. Thank you ever so much for agreeing to host the webinar, and for, I think, in terms of webinar events, I think it's been incredibly smooth in terms of how it's been run. So thank you very much. We do appreciate your help. That's everything from me. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.